Good morning. Welcome to the Kingsport News Hour for the 13th day in the 11th month, the 16th year of Chungi. I'm going to save my Happy New Year's for the real New Year's, if you don't mind. As I mentioned in the Tuesday broadcast, right? This whole thing about January 1st being the beginning of the year is kind of random, uh, kind of random. But you gotta uh, give the guy credit, right? We're talking about the second king of Rome. Romulus, I guess, was the first, and then this guy, I've forgotten his name already. But one of the most important people in history, I suppose, since he started the whole January 1 is New Year thing, but I can't remember his name. Anyway, you can look it up. Go to the Tuesday broadcast. Anyway, he started a tradition that has continued for 2,700 years, roughly. I can't pinpoint the exact year where he said, okay, January 1, that's going to be the new year. But roughly, give or take 2,700 years, he started this. And that's pretty amazing. And I don't know, maybe he's in spirit world right now and going around sort of boasting, hey, you know what, that January 1 thing, you know what, that's me. Maybe, I don't know. But we talked about, in the in our community of faith, we talk about starting a tradition that we say is going to go on for thousands of years and tens of thousands of years. But I think it perhaps behooves us to look back and see just how this relatively random decision by this one guy, this one king, is still being followed today by most of the world. Not all the world, but most of the world. And it's not even the best calendar. I learned that the Iranian, or I guess the Persian calendar, the new year is on the spring equinox. That makes some sense, right? That makes sense. That's not random. I say, okay, well, spring equinox, that's when, growth begins and things come out of the ground and stuff like that in the spring. And so that actually makes more sense than having just sort of a random January 1. It could have been, August 1 or May 1st, or, but this guy, this king, decided that January 1, he named the month after the god of transition and changes, the two-faced God, one face facing the past and one face facing the future. He says, yeah, okay, well, that's going to be it. So, yeah, how is it that this is going on? Of course, it's because Rome actually continued. Rome itself continued and became strong and became an empire, took over the European continent and Northern Africa, and so it became, the big power in the world. But actually, there were times in history when China was more powerful, when some of the Arabian uh, uh, dynasties were more powerful. But Rome, it's interesting, sort of inherited or Rome, or as one person said, Rome never fell. It became a church. That's how one person expressed it. And yeah, it sort of morphed into the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church spread around the world. And countries, in, uh, adopted, or Catholicism at the same time adopted the calendar. And of course, you had the Protestants in the 16th century, but in terms of calendar, the Protestants didn't have a better idea. So they also, with some reluctance, but eventually adopted the Gregorian calendar of Pope Gregory the 13th, I think, which was an adjustment of the original Roman calendar that the king made, and then Julius Caesar made some corrections, and then Pope Gregory made some corrections. But basically, it was the king that decided January 1. Yeah. So that gives us an idea of what it takes for a tradition to become established and to last for thousands and thousands of years. Anyway, so I find that interesting. But anyway, I'm saving my Happy New Year until the real one, which is about 6.5 weeks from now. Okay. All right, let's go through what is happening around the kingdom right now in Chongpyeong, Tennessee. It's 36 degrees, cloudy, sunshine and some clouds through the day, high of 50, tonight becoming partly cloudy and low of 31. Father's hometown still continuing very, very bitterly cold, dangerously cold, clear in 5 degrees right now, and getting down to 2 below zero tonight, clear, partly cloudy and cold tonight, and then tomorrow hazy sun and cold, a high of 21. At the Tonygung Palace in northeast Pennsylvania, 19 degrees and mostly clear. Snow starting in less than an hour, maybe about a half an hour or so, 20 minutes to half an hour, but not a whole lot. Anyway, today a high of 24, a couple of flurries early this morning, otherwise breezy and cold with intervals of clouds and sunshine. Tonight, partly cloudy, low of 13. At the Liberty Rock RV Park and Campground in Limestone County, Texas, partly cloudy and 41. And a high today of 70, breezy this afternoon, clear, partly cloudy and windy, low of 55. The Suncheon Palace in Korea, 25 with some clouds, turning out clear and cold tonight, 17 for a low. Tomorrow, mostly sunny and chilly, high of 35. Gunma Palace is in Japan, mostly cloudy and 40. Clearing tonight, getting down to 33. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy with snow at times in the afternoon with little or no accumulation, high of 47. Guangzhou, Guangdong, China, 60 degrees and clear, remaining clear tonight and breezy, low of 50, breezy in the morning, otherwise plenty of sun, high of 64. All right, let's go here to Father's Word. All right, let's see here. Okay. All right, we're in the book on the restoration of the true God's homeland, chapter 2. And near the end of chapter 2, we're in section 4.2, the last page of chapter 2. Okay. This is October 23rd, 1991. Father says that we're going to make the Summit Club. And Summit Club was it was a it was a sort of an informal, I would say, an informal organization that sought to sought to bring together heads of state and government centering on True Father. So we're going to make the Summit Club, and we're going to meet the highest heads of state and government around the world. America's Bush, this is 1991, so America's Bush, Gorbachev of the Soviet Union, Kang Tae-min. Kang Tae-min in English is what? Anyway, the head of China at that time. What is this? What is this actual? I only have the Korean pronunciation here. I say Deng Xiaoping, who taught Kang Tae-min. I can't remember. I used to know it. Anyway, but he was talking about meeting Deng Xiaoping, which I don't think he ever did. But so now, until now, they've all been acting like beggars. So we're going to tear them out, and light them on fire. And so then I won't have to do these things that I'm doing now. So, home church. If we had done all the home church, then we would not have to be doing these things now. Even if it is an individual, we must educate them. Do you understand? we cannot be going the way the suffering path of the wilderness course any longer. You must have victory. You must overcome that, have victory over that, and you have to. We have to uh, overcome all these people who are criticizing and attacking each other, referring to, I guess, the heads of state that, they're attacking each other. Anyway, okay, so Father encouraging again the family church, which Father was always talking about doing it from building building the ideal kingdom of God from the bottom up. So it has to be organic. And this, of course, is where Hak Ja Han has gone wrong, where she tried to use money in order to go top down, to control the top with money, and then sort of impose her will, shall we say, by she thought claiming to control the top of the power pyramid. But that's not the way that uh, Father wanted to do it, and it's easy for people to think that, if I just control the top of the pyramid, I can control the whole pyramid. And this is what, of course, this was Satan's strategy. By getting hold of Adam and Eve, the human beings that God had created, he was able to gain control over the whole world because Adam and Eve were created at the pinnacle of creation. And so the entire creation came under Satan's dominion. So this is still that kind of archangelic thinking that Hak Ja Han is representing, and also Preston, in my understanding, has a pretty similar type of thinking as well. It's control the top, right? Control the top. And I'm hearing rumors now that Preston, or at least Preston's people, are are trying to make moves to take over the Family Federation in Korea. I'm not exactly sure why anyone would want to take over a ship that is on fire and is about to sink. Excuse me. I have a cold. I'm going to mute myself and then blow my nose if you don't mind. Anyway, but I'm sure he'll do what he thinks is right. But that's not the way that the second king, Hyung Jin-mun, thinks at all. He's doing it like Father wanted to do it, which is to work from the bottom up, to go around, go around, go around, looking for people who are ready to accept the message, who are prepared to accept the message. And if someone's not, if someone says, hey, you know what, I've got my own religion and I'm satisfied with it, okay, fine. And we'll go talk to someone else. This is how the king is doing it, which I think is the right way to do it. I think that is, well, that's also the way that the Father wants us to do it. All right. Um, let's see here. So because the Satanic World has this as the first of the year, there are all sorts of speeches being made right now, especially it seems it's a tradition in some countries, not the United States, but in some countries, to sort of make a sort of major speech to the nation by the president or a king or dictator or whatever. And so Xi Jinping has made his speech, and Kim Jong Un has made his speech, and also the president of South Korea has made a speech, and others. But these are uh, I don't find them very useful at all. They, things are going to be great this year, and uh, stuff like that. But anyway, it's mostly sort of not very important speeches. But what is interesting to me, though, is that right now we have a review on the Epoch Times of how President Trump changed the world during 2025, and I'll be going to that in just a minute. Before I do, let's look at this, because Father prophesied that there would be a competition among countries over resources, and that's exactly what seems to be happening more and more. And here's a person who's saying that we're in a metals war. Gold and silver track their best year since 1970s as volatility grips the trade. And so let's take a look at this. I think this is probably telling us something about what's going to happen in the coming year. Of course, today, China has begun its export controls on silver. And as this article explains, China is the third largest producer of silver, and silver is an extremely important industrial metal now. There used to be a metal that was used for money, but now it's vital for industry, and we'll see about that in just a minute. Gold and silver swung downward Wednesday. That would be yesterday, right? No, yes, that would be yesterday. But 2025 will go down as one of the best years for metals in decades, in terms of the price, in other words. Gold futures fell to about 4,350 per troy ounce, while silver futures tumbled roughly 10% after the Chicago Mercantile Exchange raised margin requirements on precious metal contracts for a second time in a week, forcing out leveraged positions. So if you're not invested in, stock market and stuff, you may not understand what the margin requirement is. But basically, it determines how much money or you can borrow in order to invest in something, or like silver, for example. For example, you may say, okay, I want to buy $1,000 worth of well, let's say, well, be more realistic. Let's say $1 million, okay? $1 million worth of silver, for example. But I only have $250,000. So then, okay, well, if the margin requirement is 25%, then you're good, and you can do that. You can buy, or you can invest in $1 million worth of silver contracts with just a $250,000 cash on hand. But now this Chicago Mercantile Exchange has said, no, now we're going to raise that requirement. So I don't know. I'm not sure how much they raised it by, but then people who can't meet that new requirement, that higher requirement, will have to sell. And so that's why the futures went down something like 10% yesterday. Even with the late year volatility, gold has surged around 65%, while silver has more than doubled this year, marking their strongest gain since 1979. Platinum and copper also roared higher in 2025, and amid a global AI boom in efforts to onshore manufacturing. We're in a metals war. Josh Fair, founder and CEO of precious metals manufacturer and distributor Scottsdale Mint, told Yahoo Finance. Fair pointed out that the trend for countries to secure metal resources started with gold, with central bank buying accelerating over the past few years. Silver and copper have also shot up in recent months as the U.S. added them to its critical minerals list, considered vital to the U.S. economy and national security. These data centers that are getting created so fast in the United States, the U.S. has to have it, silver, to protect its position in the world, Fair added. Meanwhile, China, the third largest silver mining country, is expected to restrict silver exports starting January 1, starting today. And today is a holiday, but I think this is, in fact, going into effect, further raising worries of supply crunch. China is restricting its exports. That means other places in the world are going to have to find the metal somewhere, Fair said. Roughly 60%, and this is important here, roughly 60% of the world's silver is used for industrial applications, right? From solar panels to data center components to electric vehicle batteries, according to the Silver Institute, a trade organization. In October, Samsung struck a $7 million deal to secure future silver supply from a Mexican mine, underscoring the need for the precious metal. So it looks like Samsung really made a wise decision there. Well, some strategists warn of a stretched trade in precious metals. Fader pointed out that when adjusted for inflation, silver is still cheap. Silver has probably been too cheap for a long time, and that's the other driver of this, he said. He added, if you adjust the old high of $50 per troy ounce in 1980 for inflation, it's over $200. So you could even say that these prices today are still kind of pathetic. And the rise in the price of metals this year comes as the US dollar has weakened nearly 10%. and the Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve lowered interest rates 3 times in 2025. So I just want to show you a graph of the U.S. Dollar index. A dollar index, of course, is a index that includes a number of currencies and their relationship with the dollar. Major currencies like the yen, the euro, pound, and for some reason the Swedish krona. So they bring these together and they made an index. Um, Now the index is quite old, a few decades old. So and it started at 100. So you could say that, well, look, the dollar after all this time is still at 98. It's only down by 2% from where it was when this index began at the beginning, way back when, a few decades ago. But this year, it has gone down roughly 10%. And if you go back here to where President Trump was inaugurated, right about there, right about there, that's January 21. It was at 108, and now it's at 98. So it's lost to 10 points. I guess a little bit less than 10 points. So roughly 10% it has lost during this year. Most of that loss occurred between January and April. And since April, it's been relatively stable. That's also true. Yeah. But okay, so that's the end of that article there. Okay. So we'll see what happens, but especially gold, and the major driver for gold is supposed to be that the U.S. are freezing the assets of Russia after the invasion of Ukraine and the start of the Ukraine war, and countries realizing that their dollar assets, could also be frozen at the whim of the United States government if they ever do something that the U.S. doesn't like. And also this whole move towards attempted move, shall we say, towards de-dollarization. And it's still an attempted move. I've mentioned before that the BRICS have created something, or they're creating something called the unit, right? And um, I can find something here. The unit BRICS currency. They're trying to create something called unit, and I don't know if this is going to succeed. Here we have the Asia Times. Who publishes Asia Times? I don't know. Well, let's take a look at here. Okay. Let's see, where are we here? Okay. And some people say that this is going to be, a sort of a huge blow against the dollar. I'm still skeptical. So will the BRICS unit, and UNIT unit is actually their name. And I mean, how unimaginative can you get? You know, how, how unimaginative can you get? It's the most unimaginative name possible for a new currency. Anyway, let's see what's going on. Time will tell time will tell if BRICS Plus currency and payment system is a viable dollar alternative or merely a symbol of ambition. Okay. At a major summit in Russia last year, a banknote was unveiled that carried more symbolism than monetary value. It hinted at the growing ambitions of BRICS Plus, a group of emerging economies anchored by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, to develop alternatives to the existing global financial system. So it's what is it now? It's let me get this straight: 60% backed by currencies of these countries, and I think also maybe Saudi Arabia, and 40% by gold. Yeah. But if you look at these countries and you look at their currencies, the banknote itself, ringed with national flags and a multilingual text, was dubbed an R5, acknowledging the ruble, real, rupee, renminbi, and rand of the bloc's core members. Oh man, it's getting more unimaginative as we go along. Now there are moves to turn that symbolism into something more concrete. This December, speculation increased. This December, which December is that? Okay, this is yeah, okay, this is 2 days ago. Okay, all right. This December, as speculation increased around plans for a new BRICS plus currency and payment system known as the unit. Designed by the International Reserve and Investment Asset System, the unit is backed by a fixed reserve basket of 40% gold by weight and 60% in BRICS plus currencies. It would be delivered via a digital platform using transparent blockchain technology. This combination of a stable asset with a set of diversified currencies reduces exposure to financial volatility. But what if all the currencies go down, right? Because what do we have here? What do we have here? Ruble, okay, the Russian. Real, okay, that's Brazil, right? Rupee is what? Rupee is India. Renminbi, okay, so that's China. Rand, South Africa. And among these, maybe the Chinese currency is probably the most stable, I think, but all the others are not so stable. So if four of the five are going down, then how is that going to uh, protect them from exposure to financial volatility? And the targeting of single currencies by speculators while building trust between unit users. The development is significant because of the BRICS Plus group's scale and influence. They talk about scale, okay, okay, going into the history. Okay, then in 2024, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and UAE became members, with Indonesia joining in 2025, hence the BRICS Plus label. Combined, these countries account for 36% of the world's territory and 48.5% of its population. But having a lot of population, nearly 20 other countries have either formally applied for membership or been invited to participate as partner countries. Driving the expansion is a collective desire. Okay, that's the key word here: desire for a multipolar international system not centered on Western control. And I understand that, and I think that's completely legitimate. But that's desires are one thing. You can write a letter to Santa Claus, but he may not necessarily deliver on Christmas morning. And the bloc's combined wealth is substantial, pooling 39% of global GDP in purchasing power parity terms, right? Okay, so not in actual, in real monetary terms, but in purchasing power parity. 78.2% of global coal production, 36% of natural gas production, and 72% of rare earth mineral reserves. So is this a threat? The unit would not be controlled by any single country or nation-based central bank, nor would it function as an everyday currency. According to economist and financial commentator Vince Lanci, it is intended to be a basket-backed, collateral-anchored settlement instrument intended specifically for wholesale cross-border trade in a multipolar financial world. In other words, it's pretty much the same as what is it? The IMF has special drawing rights, the SDRs. And the SDRs came about also in a relatively similar situation. SDRs, I think, first began to be developed in the late 1960s when it was becoming increasingly obvious that the system that was developed at the Woods in the 1940s was not going to last much longer. In other words, because America was running out of gold. America was spending too much money. We're actually, creating too much money for the Vietnam War, for various social programs, and so people were saying, "Well, we need something other than the dollar." And this is way back in the '60s and early '70s, okay? And special drawing rights, and special drawing rights are, in fact, basket-backed, collateral-anchored settlement instrument. That's basically what they are. But the problem, I guess, for the BRICS is that the SDR is primarily dollar. It's also basket backed, but the dollar is in that basket, and so is the yen and the euro, the pound, the British pound, and the Chinese currency, the renminbi. And so I guess that's why BRICS are saying we want our own sort of version of the SDR. I think that's basically what's happening here. But so over the last what is it, 50 plus years, has the SDR replaced the dollar? Obviously not. So here, this is um, we failed once, so we're going to try the same thing again. Basically, I think that's what's maybe that's what's going on here. Um, the strategic logic is to reduce the group's collective trade dependence on the US dollar, euro, or yen. In particular, it would lower exchange costs by removing the need to convert local currencies to and from the US dollar. Yeah. It would also increase economic and financial interdependence between BRICS plus members and potentially dampen economic shockwaves from the US and the West in the event of a recession, such as might occur if the current AI bubble were to burst. Should the unit become an established trade currency, I think that's should, if is too short of a word, so they use should. Sounds more intelligent. So if the unit becomes an established trade currency, okay, if it's too short, so they say should, it could challenge the US dollar's role as the world's dominant reserve currency. Yes, this is really we're talking letters of Santa Claus here. It could challenge the US dollar's role. No, come on, let's be real, all right? In turn, that could reduce investment in US Treasury securities and other dollar-denominated assets. More countries, especially from Global South, would be tempted to join BRICS Plus to use their alternative payment system. As a former White House economist put it, it'd be like a new union of up-and-coming discontents who, on the scale of GDP, now collectively outweigh not only the reigning hegemon, the United States, but the entire G7 weight class put together. I think some people are talking this up more than it deserves. We never did find out what the unit stands for. Apparently, unit is some sort of an acronym, but they haven't told us what it stands for. All right. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. Now, already President Trump has said that he's going to attack uh, either militarily or economically any country that tries to join this kind of an effort. But he's not really pushing that too far, is he? So that means that he's not threatened at all. Doesn't think the dollar is seriously threatened by this whole thing. And I tend to agree with that. What is it? This has been going on for what, a couple of years now, 2 years or 3 years, and uh, India, India and China working together. Right there, you've got a problem. And Russia, of course, I think China's view on this maybe is probably that this could develop into a something that is centered on China. That China could become the boss of this situation. And this would be a way for them to bring these countries under their tutelage or under their influence. That's probably what China's looking at this, how China's looking at this. Russia, obviously, they're not allowed to use the dollar right now. They're outside of the SWIFT system and they're under all sorts of sanctions. So that's obvious what's going on there. The other countries, South Africa, I don't know what's going on in South Africa. What is it? Brazil. Brazil, of course, it's got a communist president right now, anti-American president right now, so you can understand what's going on there. And then India, India always likes to play both sides, right? going back to the Cold War days when it was part of what was called the non-aligned movement. India and Indonesia and other countries sort of claiming to be not siding with either the West or the communist world. Anyway, we'll see how this develops this year, but I'm still predicting. I can go ahead and I feel confident enough to make a prediction that this is not going to work out. Yeah. All right, let's go to the 2025 in review. How Trump shaped America and the world. And that is certainly he did, right? This is a very different world today from what it was a year ago. And in most ways, I think it is much better than it was a year ago in most ways. Of course, we have some major concerns, but so far, so good, I think. The president curbed illegal immigration. He did, yes. Boosted the economy. I don't know about that. Okay. He boosted part of the economy, that's for sure. And the GDP, of course, third quarter GDP up 4.3%. But we'll see how that. They're going to have a revision, first revision at the end of January, and then the second revision at the end of February. So we'll see what happens with those revisions. Enacted tax reform. He did, yes. And targeted gender ideology. Yes, that is very important there. And I think probably, among these, God is probably most pleased with the targeting of gender ideology and resolved international conflicts. Yeah, okay, but they sometimes flare up again. But okay, yeah, we can give him credit for that as well. Okay, let me bring this up for you. Okay. Since returning to the White House in January, President Donald Trump has rapidly reshaped America's domestic and international priorities. In the first year of his second term, his administration enacted sweeping tax reform, deported millions of illegal immigrants, imposed tariffs to balance trade relations, brokered several peace deals, overhauled U.S. foreign policy, and ordered the federal government to recognize only two sexes, male and female, among other measures. I'm going to have to, I think I can hold on for a while. Okay. Here is a look at the key actions Trump has taken so far. Okay, let's take a look here. One of Trump's first acts was to address illegal immigration, an issue that became a crisis during President Joe Biden's tenure. Trump prioritized securing the nation's borders with a flurry of executive orders which caused illegal immigration to plummet at the southern border. And as I pointed out, I think, if you look at each individual case, there have been some hardship cases that we can really ask ourselves, did we really vote for this? But it has been more of a sledgehammer than a scalpel for sure. And given the scale of the problem, perhaps it's inevitable. Illegal immigration dropped to the lowest numbers in recorded history, according to Customs and Border Protection, and for 7 straight months, border authorities released 0 illegal immigrants after they were apprehended. The Department of Homeland Security said that as of early December, more than 2.5 million illegal immigrants had been deported since the start of the year. Trump has said the removals will benefit Americans by reducing competition for housing and jobs. And there's something to be said for that. The housing index did come down recently. That's sure. Of course, each market, individual market is different, but overall, there was a decrease in housing prices at the end of the year. In an unprecedented move, Trump also ordered in March that hundreds of illegal immigrants be deported to a prison in El Salvador. He invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, which grants the president wartime authority as the legal base for expanding the deportations. His administration stated that the law granted him authority to target members of the MS-13 International Criminal Gang and terrorist group and the Tren de Aragua Venezuelan gang to end terrorist group. However, the administration continues to face legal challenges, and courts have blocked deportations under that law for now. The president took other immigration relation actions, including imposing a $100,000 annual fee on new H-1B visa applications for highly skilled workers, signing an executive order to end birthright citizenship, halting green card and naturalization applications for people from 19 high-risk countries, and suspending the diversity visa lottery program. He also introduced the Trump Gold Card, which cost $1 million for individuals, $2 million for businesses to provide expedited residency status. The Trump Gold Card, green card is a green card on steroids, Trump said. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Customs Border Protection will receive a large portion of the $170 billion dedicated to immigration enforcement through September 2029. This is a large increase over their current annual budgets, and the funds are expected to support deportation efforts and the construction of more border wall and new detention centers in the coming year. And in the America First trade policy, shortly after his inauguration, Trump described tariffs as the most beautiful word in the dictionary. He drew inspiration from William McKinley, the 25th president who championed steep tariffs to protect American industries in the late 19th century. On April 2nd, Trump imposed levies of at least 10% on more than 80 countries. This was a significant shift from the trade policy of his first term, when tariffs targeted a few specific countries like China. In his second term, Trump is using tariffs as leverage to reduce tariffs and non-tariff barriers on U.S. goods. He has frequently praised tariffs for attracting more than $17 trillion in new investment commitments this year. Commitments, right? So these are promises, okay? Data from the Bureau of Economic Analysis showed that U.S. trade deficit also fell by 10.9% in September. He also promised to send American taxpayers $2,000 tariff rebate checks directly using funds from the tariff revenue. Okay, well, we're still waiting for that. Laughter means that I'm not really expecting it. Anyway, okay. After April 2nd, which he dubbed Liberation Day, Trump launched trade talks with key trading partners to revise long-standing agreements. He has announced new trade deals with 17 trading partners, including Argentina, the European Union, Japan, South Korea, Switzerland, Thailand, the UK, and Vietnam. Since January, Trump has also increased pressure on China by significantly raising tariff rates on Chinese goods. Although some were reduced in a November truce, current tariffs remain high at 47.5%. This is expected to lead to long-term economic decoupling between the United States and China. And we hope that it also leads to, the overthrow of the Chinese Communist Party. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see. That's really the prize here. But we'll have to see if that's going to come about. Trump's trade agenda faced legal challenges from businesses and from states in 2025. The Supreme Court is currently considering the legality of the president's tariff actions after justices heard a case on November 5th regarding whether Trump is in violation of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Although some economists warned that tariffs would increase inflation, the Bureau of Labor Statistics recently reported that inflation cooled to 2.7% in September, below expectations. Trump's foreign policy represents a significant departure from the policies established by previous presidents. The new national security strategy, released in November, outlines a shift in focus and resources from the Middle East and Europe to the Western Hemisphere. My key takeaway from the first year of the administration is that there's been a huge shift in regional prioritization in the world, and Trump is putting incredible emphasis on the Western Hemisphere and the U.S. homeland. Michael Walsh, a non-resident senior fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute, told the Epoch Times. The recent military buildup near Venezuela and the appointment of Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry as U.S. Special Envoy to Greenland reflect this change in strategy, according to Walsh. And Denmark is very upset about Landry being appointed to Greenland because he's one of the people who says that the United States needs to take over Greenland. After taking office, Trump closed the U.S. Agency for International Development, a move that Secretary of State Marco Rubio described as a major shift from a charity-based model in foreign affairs to one that emphasizes trade over aid and investment over assistance. Trump has brokered the end of multiple wars since taking office in January. He has taken a transactional approach to diplomacy, using tariffs and economic pressure to encourage warring nations to enter peace talks. The ceasefire agreement between Israel and the Hamas terrorist group, resulting in the return of all Israeli hostages after 2 years, is considered one of Trump's most significant achievements this year. Since taking office, he has also actively sought a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia to help end Europe's deadliest conflict since World War II. And yeah, that one is really, really not going very well. Um, doesn't look like that's going to end anytime soon. No. The fourth anniversary is coming up in less than 2 months now, and it looks like it's going to hit that anniversary and beyond, I suspect. But we'll see what happens. Trump also achieved other victories on the world stage, from getting NATO to allies to agree to a larger defense budget at this year's Hague summit to ordering precision strikes on Iran's three main nuclear facilities. He has championed strengthening the military by securing a major defense budget and signed an order branding the Department of Defense as the Department of War. Additionally, he has influenced international policy discussions by urging Western allies to prioritize defense spending over environmental, social, and governance issues, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and climate change. The president campaigned on a promise to reduce taxes, and he used his whip from the White House to push through a series of tax reforms in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act in 6 months, about half the time Congress typically takes to pass a spending package. Trump signed the act into law on July 4th, calling it the most popular bill ever signed in the history of the country. Okay. All right. Okay. We won't fact check that. Indeed, no, included in the bill are extensions of tax cuts passed in Trump's first term that were set to expire at the end of 2025, in addition to clauses that remove taxes on tips and overtime up to certain amounts and on Social Security. And actually, I'm sorry, he did not end taxes on Social Security. Let's be clear. There is a deduction, and so there is a significant reduction, I would say, in taxes on Social Security. But he did not remove taxes on Social Security, at least not in my experience. I'm, sort of preparing my tax filing now, and as far as I can see, I am getting a significant reduction in taxes. That is true, but anyway, there's still tax on Social Security. Administration officials promised big returns for tax filers in 2026, with an average increase of $1,000 per filer. And that may be true in my personal experience as well. Normally, if some of you guys are taking Social Security, you can do a voluntary withholding, right? Or you can make estimated tax payments every quarter. And I've been doing the latter. And the last estimated tax payment is due in 2 weeks on January 15th. And my calculation right now is that I probably will not have to make that payment, because I've already paid enough taxes to cover my tax bill. And January 15th payment may not be necessary. Or even if I do make a payment, it'll probably only be maybe just $100 or $200 or something like that. Because I still have some things that I haven't calculated yet. But so that, being able to skip that payment alone is actually pretty big. So I do give him credit for that. Let's see here, $1,000. Okay, per filer, all right. Analysts at the Nonprofit Tax Foundation estimated that the tax reforms will increase gross domestic product by about 1.2%, while reducing federal tax revenue by about $4.5 trillion annually through 2034. Annually, $4.5 trillion annually. Holy smokes! Wait a second. Let's take a look at what was it? U.S. Debt clock. U.S. debt clock. How much are they collecting now? So here, U.S. federal tax revenue, $5 trillion. So wait a second, if you reduce that by $4.5 trillion annually, I don't think that's right. I think that's right. Right? There, $4.5 trillion annually. It may be $4.5 trillion through 2034, the total over 10 years or 9 years or whatever it is. But I don't think that's going to be an annual reduction. Tariffs will make up the difference, according to Trump, who also suggested that tariffs could eventually replace income taxes. That would be nice. We'll have to wait and see, but yeah, that would certainly be nice. That would bring America one step closer to the Chinese Constitution as well. Whether you get rid of it or just keep it around for fun, no, no, no. No, it's not fun, all right? There's no fun in the income tax. No fun at all. Or have it really low, much lower than it is now. You won't be paying income tax, Trump said in a December 3rd White House cabinet meeting. Keep it around for fun. Come on. What are you talking about? Since taking office, Trump has introduced reforms on public health and safety, climate, energy, education, gender ideology, and more through dozens of executive orders. The president repeatedly described these actions as part of his common sense agenda. The executive actions also led to a host of lawsuits from opponents. Yes, they're not going down quietly. In order to win a culture of war, you have to be willing to engage in the culture. And President Trump has unabashedly done so, Tiffany Justice, co-founder of conservative parents group Moms for Liberty, told the Epoch Times in a recent interview. On his first day in office, Trump signed an order that defined the federal government's stance on gender. It is the policy of the United States to recognize two sexes, male and female, the order reads. These sexes are not changeable and are grounded in fundamental and incontrovertible reality. What does that mean? Absolute, unique, eternal, and unchanging. That's what it means. Yes, he's got it. About 2 weeks later, Trump invited children, mothers, and women athletes to the White House's East Room and signed an order that barred transgender identifying male athletes from competing in women's sports. Wow, that's a lot of athletes there. Good for them. With this executive order, the war on women's sports is over, Trump said. Well, it's still going on, but he also signed executive orders aimed at eliminating diversity, equity, and inclusion programs across the federal government. Many corporations are also stepping back from these programs. Trump's appointment of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as health secretary and the subsequent creation of the Make America Healthy Again Commission shifted the federal government's approach to public health. The president also sent the National Guard to address riots in Los Angeles and to tackle what he called out of control crime in cities including Chicago, Memphis, Tennessee, Portland, Oregon, and Washington. And now he's pulling those back, actually, according to the news reports now the last couple of days. The deployments were challenged in courts, and on December 23rd, the Supreme Court blocked the deployment of the National Guard in Chicago. This decision could affect the president's ability to send troops to other cities. I think because of that decision, he's pulling them back, I think, other countries as well, other cities as well. DOGE, DOGE didn't work out so well. Yeah, I know they list 250, but actually the federal government's expenditures, though, have not gone down during the year. They actually went up. So go figure. one of Trump's first actions on day one was to establish the Department of Government Efficiency, led initially by Tesla CEO Elon Musk. The department took bold actions across Washington in the early months of Trump's second term, and so forth and so on. So 317,000 federal government employees left the workforce. 92% of them left voluntarily, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, federal spending has gone up. All right. So go figure on that. Yeah. You know. So that just shows that the fact that federal spending has gone up instead of down as a result of DOGE just shows that the United States is on a unsustainable path, as repeated series of Fed chairmen have said, on an unsustainable path, and no one can stop it. No one can stop it from going down this path of destruction, even though people know that this is a path of destruction, and yet keeps on going, keeps on going, keeps on going. And so if the dollar fails, that's where it's going to fail, not the BRICS, not the BRICS. No, not China, not Russia, not India for sure, not South Africa for absolutely sure. It's going to fail because of Washington, because of Washington. And we don't know when that's going to happen, but we know it is somehow it is inevitable that this is going to happen. Right now, the national debt is already $38.5 trillion, according to this U.S. debt clock site. $38.5 trillion national debt. And it's growing, 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 growing. As you can see, even as we sit here on New Year's Day, it's going up, going up, going up. So, then there's no stopping it. There's no stopping it. Okay. Tax revenue is going up. And let's see, U.S. federal deficit is going up, the official. Federal spending, $7 trillion, right? $7 trillion. So $7 trillion spending, and then $5.3 trillion from tax revenue, and then 1.7 from is the budget deficit. That's the official. And I think there's another number that shows the actual. But anyway, so so 2025, the bottom line is that he did some good stuff. Yes, the gender thing, very important. And gender thing, very important. I think that's probably the biggest thing that he's done. But he has not been able to turn America away from this path of eventual demise, not by the BRICS, but by Washington. And so we will prepare ourselves, right? Prepare ourselves for what's going to happen. We don't know when it's going to happen. And I've been saying now for years that it's going to happen, but I don't know when. Could be next week, could be next week, could be next week, or next month, or next year. But unfortunately, I think what we've proven over the past year with President Trump is that nobody can stop it. If Trump can't stop it, who can? Nobody, absolutely nobody. So we will see what happens to that during the coming year. Okay. All right, so during the year, the Ukraine war, I expect will continue for a while, and just the thing that I'm waiting to see is whether or not President Trump can make the difficult decision to just cut the United States away from that and say, listen, we had a 20-year war in Afghanistan. We're not going to do another one. We're just going to leave this up to the Europeans, all right? You guys work it out with Russia. And if Ukraine becomes Russian territory, that's bad. We don't like it, but we can't deal with that because we got stuff to do over in Asia. Can President Trump make that very difficult decision? Very unpopular decision, perhaps, right? So yeah, we will wait and see about that. And then, interest rates, but interest rates really coming down. He's going to appoint a new Fed chairman in May, excuse me. And already he said that he's going to appoint someone who's going to do what he wants. And so this is then calling into question the independence of the Fed. And if people doubt the independence of the Fed, they will then start to doubt the credibility of the dollar, of the US dollar. And so that will also probably push the United States closer to that cliff that is coming down, that is coming somewhere in the future. So anyway, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, we will continue the King's Report as long as the internet is up and my physical body holds up. We will continue. God bless, Godspeed. May His kingdom come quickly.